And I believe there's too many things the federal government does. It's too big, it's too strong, it's in our entire life too much. How do we change that? There's only one way to change it, and that's that tax code, that's that tax scheme. Now, one of the last bills I had, and most of you people don't really know one of the things that I've done. I've never been supported too much by the press, but I am the congressman responsible for changing the burden of proof in a tax case. In the '98 reform bill, the IRS said if you put Traficant's bill into that reform bill, they'll recommend a veto to President Clinton. What was the Traficant bill? Number one, 95% of all tax cases are civil law. And under civil law, you were guilty and had to prove yourself innocent. The Traficant bill said, as long as the taxpayer complies with the investigation, and if the IRS is not satisfied and the IRS litigates, the burden of proof in the courtroom falls upon the Internal Revenue Service. An American is innocent until proven guilty. Second of all, the Traficant language changed foreclosure law, where you have a right, and seizure law. You have a right to be represented and heard before they take. The last minute, Democrats would never hold a hearing, folks. I'm a Democrat all my life, the son of a truck driver. The last minute, I got a call from the chairman, a Republican from Texas. And he said, we're going to put your language in conference because the American people are demanding it of us. In conference committee, the Traficant language was put in. I was on the Novak show and they said, do you think Clinton will veto it? I said, no. They don't call him Slick Willie for nothing. He could veto the bill and support the Internal Revenue Service, or sign the bill and help the American people, and Clinton signed the bill. But here's what it did, and I want you to know this. I want you to realize the power of the Internal Revenue Service. 1 year after the passage of the bill, '98, they did a snapshot study, 12 months before, 12 months after. In 3 major categories, all of them covered by the Traficant language. First one was wage garnishments. If you ever had your wages garnished by the Internal Revenue Service, you'll know what I'm talking about. 12 months before the passage of the bill, 3.1 million Americans had their wages garnished. 12 months after the burden of proof shifted to the Internal Revenue Service, 560,000. 3 million Americans avoided it. Second category, and if you're in business, you'll know what I mean, property liens. 12 months before, 670,000 property liens against American businesses. 12 months after, 161,000. 500,000 Americans and businesses protected by the burden of proof language. But the big one was, folks, individual family-owned homes seized by the Internal Revenue Service due to the machinations of the burden of proof being on the taxpayer. 10,076 the year before. After the burden of proof fell to the Internal Revenue Service, 57 homes in 50 states. The argument the Internal Revenue Service has, and they said if you put Traficant's language in, how can the IRS prove a negative? And my response in the Wall Street Journal is, how can a taxpayer prove a negative? You're accusing, prove it, damn it. But you see, that was just the beginning. That was the beginning, because the Traficant bill, coupled with a Republican from Louisiana, the bill known as Tozan Traficant, would abolish the Internal Revenue Service, repeal the 16th Amendment, and would place a final retail sales tax. No more withholding. And we've upgraded it. I have upgraded it. And making a change in recommendation. We had it in at 15%, but left Social Security and Medicare alone to be further studied. There's no need to study it. I want you to listen, and when you hear the opponents come out with falsehoods, you be armed and prepared. You be prepared with talk radio. You be prepared with letters of the editor, and you stand ground and fight. You have more of a say than they want you to believe. My program is a 25% final retail sales tax on everybody. No more withholding. Harvard did a study on it. Harvard said when you take the powerful, burdensome compliance with this tax code, companies will have so much leeway. Harvard stated they predict no increases in current prices. Now here's how it works. When you buy something, you're going to pay a 25% tax, but there's no more withholding. You get your whole pay. There's no more tax on savings, no more tax on investment. You buy a duplex, there's no tax. No tax on education. Your kids are going to school, no tax. No capital gains tax. We want you to make money. No death taxes. You pass away, you leave your money to your kids. And finally, I want you to listen to the real kicker. That 25% tax adjusted is right on that border. Send your imports over, because they're going to get 25% too. Go ahead and send them. That car made in Ohio that's shipped overseas, no tax load. Right now, it's burdened down with taxes. It gets overseas, and they hit it with more taxes. As a result, we're not selling any cars, are we? No. We have approaching a $1 trillion trade deficit. China, I do not believe what they're saying about China. I believe China is closer to a $500 billion trade surplus with the United States. They're buying attack aircraft, nuclear submarines with our money. Under this bill, the Japanese and Germans that go to Las Vegas, they pay 25% into our national tax scheme. Those imports that come over, they're taxed just like American products. The Harvard study said the revenue will remain neutral, prices will hardly be impacted, but you decide what you do with your money. There's no more April 15th. Nobody in your face. That's the first phase. And then the second phase is what I'm in here about today. How in God's name can the United States of America operate with an entity handling our money that can be penetrated from 1,000 directions of interest not necessarily favorable for our country? It's a very simple anecdote, folks. We've got to change it. Federal Reserve's got to be abolished. We can promulgate a plan in placing a structured program within the concept of constitutional oversight. The Constitution is clear. Listen to the verbiage. Congress shall coin our money. Yes. Now the politicians will say, we still have oversight of them. We can rein them in. They're not going to rein anybody in.